You're listening to Excellence Above Talent, a podcast where we have the hard conversations about the lives of men and what leads us to achieve greatness and suffer defeat. Hear from other men's journeys as well, as we all learn and grow together to become inspirations to ourselves and those around us. And now your host, Aaron Thomas.
What's up, my beautiful people? Aaron Thomas with Excellence Above Talent. I'm here with a man that I don't know much about. I've seen him on Facebook, and I've seen what he's doing in the community. And I'm also a member of his church. Although I don't know if you have to go up there and like say you're a member. You just
claim
claim
the right hand of fellowship.
Yeah, no.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just gonna claim I'm a member of the church. I got you, Pastor Cliff, and so I'm super excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. Yeah. And so, just kind of give us a little rundown of who you are, Pastor Cliff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Cliff DeArmond, Hope Alive Church here in Odessa, Texas. I really just consider myself to be a very fortunate man, a very blessed man. And what I mean by that is that really motivates me to do what I do as a husband, a father. First, I'm definitely somebody that feels called to the ministry and to helping impact our world with the message of hope and of course, the message of Christ and what we are able to do in the community for others. What I do in business and all of that, it really just comes from a place of being very fortunate. God has been good to me throughout my entire life. You grow up in church and you think of all these amazing things people have conquered in order to come to Christ. And my amazing thing is I was fortunate to not have to go through a lot of those things. That doesn't give me a disconnection from that past, because I got my own challenges. But that's what really fuels me to give, because I really have been blessed. And so it motivates me to be a good husband, a good dad. Motivates me to do what I can for God in this world when we are in some of our most hopeless times. He gave me a message of hope, living hope, that hope is never lost. Yeah. Even when we feel it. Like I said, I'm a businessman, entrepreneur. My goal there was to, do what I could to support my family and do it in a good way, while not being a burden to a church or something like that, like as traditional methods are. Gotcha. And then, what I can do for our community. And so I'm honored to do all of those things, and a few of those avenues allow me to meet you.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure,
I'm blessed in that avenue too. But yeah, 37 years old, like I said, business owner, 4 kids, 18 all the way down to 8. Caleb, Connor, Mariah, and Chase, my kids. My wife Martha and I are going to celebrate in 2022 17 years of marriage.
That's amazing.
And she let me keep my underwear in the drawer for 17 whole years. And so we were bought a home together, and so I'm blessed.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Really am.
So my first question to all my guests is, men are 3.5 times more likely to commit suicide than women. And so this is a podcast where I want to talk about the issues that normally don't get talked about in life. And so why do you think the suicide rate is so high amongst men?
Well, we hinted at it a little earlier, but I just feel like men don't know where to go for help.
Gotcha.
I just feel, I'll say people sometimes, when our teeth hurts, we know to go to the dentist. Yeah. When our back hurts, we know to call the chiropractor. Yeah. When our eyes hurt, our head hurts, we go see but when our heart hurts and our mind hurts, we often leave it untreated. Yeah. And we have no training how to relieve the symptoms. And so we just stuff and pack our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings And then society gives men a weakness when they cannot be vocal and vulnerable and open. It tells them that they're less than unless they're strong and gruff and I think if we're gonna save our sons, we have to change that.
Yeah.
And so I really think the suicide rate is what it is in men because they don't know. We've not been trained.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember hearing my dad say the words "I love you," but he told me his dad never said the words "I love you" to him.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was a good man, but he didn't know how to process those emotions. And fortunately, I feel like that's getting better the more aware we are of these issues. But I definitely think they contribute to those statistics.
Yeah, for sure. I know that I tell my little nephews that I love them every time I get off the phone. Mm-hmm. I did not hear the word "I love you" a lot, growing up. And so I think it didn't. I don't think it affected me, but it was something that it's just nice to hear that someone says every so often, "Hey, I love you." It's nice. So
yeah. So
now they're telling me that they love me. 15, 13, immediately. In the beginning, they're like, "That's weird," but I'm like, it's not weird because you have a heart, you have feelings, we have emotions, and you want to feel that love. And if you are running from it or you're trying not to accept it, then at some point it's going to get difficult in your life and you're going to want to feel that, but your whole entire life you've been running from the love that people have been trying to give you. So
and I pray that people would understand the value on those 3 words.
For sure.
Not just the words themselves,
Got you.
but the motives behind them.
Yeah.
I think we have cheapened the words "I love you."
Got you.
Because people on first dates are saying "I love you." Yeah. People over the internet are saying creepy. "I love you." Yeah. And they don't have a true understanding of what that really is. And I know that my love for Christ and his overwhelming love for me has allowed me to say it. But I've had a personal conviction of the last 12 months to stop saying it out of routine or out of obligation.
Got you.
And say it when I mean it and mean it when I say it.
Got you.
And I think there needs to be a revolution, an awareness, an awakening that those words mean so much. Like people who abuse say the words "I love you." That creates a scar. It creates a callus. Yeah. And I think a real realization of those 3 words. They are the most powerful words, in my opinion. The human language can phrase powerful, but they can, just like anything else, they can easily be manipulated and what am I trying to say? Stolen. They can easily being misconstrued or misrepresented. Yeah. So I feel you on that.
So I kind of want to just kind of dig deep on that. What is your definition of love when someone says "I love you"? How would you I guess describe it, but also what are some things that I guess define love in your words?
Yeah, I'll take my flawed view of it, traumatic view of it in a way, and now my personal awareness perspective on it. Love was, this is what I do for you. Love was, in a lot of ways, can't you see all the things I do for you, or I bought you, or you have, don't you know I love you? Not until, just the last 8 or 9 years have I learned that love had a language, and we know the 5 love languages and those type of things, but love had more of a dialect, it had more of a way of speaking to us other than just, I bought you something nice, or you have a roof over your head. Victims of abuse have a roof over their head. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so those type of things where I think that depiction of love was flawed in many ways.
So it becomes transactional then?
It becomes very transactional, very almost like a currency. You say in order to get. You exchange these words. I deposit in order to receive. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even you talk to young couples or married couples, who said I love you first, was always he did, she did, whatever. But really, who showed that they that they loved first? And that is a different view for me now. Like, those song was giving them something he could feel.
Yeah.
I want to feel love, and felt love. It really is not verbalized. Felt love, in my opinion, is presence, even when we're not in the same room. It's empathy, even when we're not have the same scars. Real love, in my opinion, is caught, not just taught. It's understood. It's an overwhelming sense of respect and loyalty, protection. Man, love is deep. I love love.
Yeah.
We're scared of love because of the way it was before. In order for me to agree to love with you, I'm going to have to do this, that, and it almost becomes an obligation. And that's where it was transactional, in my opinion. And so I really am not throwing rocks at the past. I can only take it and launch my future. But I think it was passed on to them too. Our fathers, our uncles and aunts and grandparents, they all gave us what they knew.
Yeah.
To my grandfather's generation, men didn't cry.
Yeah.
If you cried, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They didn't laugh in church either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now, as we're growing and evolving, so I just think love is so much more. I think saying the words "I love you" is the easy part.
Gotcha. Doing it is the hard.
Oh, yeah.
Showing
the late nights, the early mornings, whatever it takes, the extra work. Love is really, if I could maybe describe it with an adjoining word, it would be to pour.
Yeah.
And not just of word, but it would be of one's entire self.
Yeah.
Presence, loyalty, mental support,
Yeah.
emotional support. So just saying I love you is almost like having a marriage certificate, but no marriage.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah. So we were having a conversation prior to you coming here, and talking about the roles of men and women and how they're shifting. Where, my grandpa, maybe my dad, it was more of a provide and protect, and that was it type of vibe. But we're now seeing that vibe isn't flying with the people that are now, living in this generation. And so what would you think would be something that I guess we need to do as men to not just only provide and protect? Like, what are some things you feel like we need to do in order to create an environment where, the family feels whole?
In addition to those, because I think they have a biblical role upon us.
Yeah, for sure.
But in addition to those, I think we need to evolve.
Yeah.
We need to admit. We need to affirm. Advocate. All of those things, in my opinion, are roles that I think have been left to, let's say, other, if you were in a single parent home, maybe it was the mother or the father, or however it worked out. But it's always been left to assuming it's for a certain gender. But I think for men, in addition to those things, is learning to admit that we're wrong. Teach our sons and daughters how a man should apologize, should grow through his learnings and mistakes. Man, we get apologizing wrong, in my opinion, because we never saw anybody. Everybody just doubled down and said, "Oh, I'm the man. This is what I do. This is my house, and in my house."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We said things to our children like, in our house, what happens in our house stays in our house.
Which is very toxic, because
it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
And if you ever heard those statements, see a therapist quickly, because there might be some behavior patterns that you are passing on because you see what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so I think
100%,
men need to say, I messed up.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
I think we need to evolve and we need to allow change. One of the worst things I did going into marriage is thinking that our marriage was going to look like the marriages I saw.
For sure.
And so I stuck my marriage into a mold and I didn't let it out of the box.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until 11 or 12 years in, 12 years, that I had to realize, we grew.
Yeah.
We grew past that point. And we're not even the same people that stood together and said, I do. You know what I mean? So I think we need to do that in addition to the more, I guess, masculine or more stereotypically male gender-based roles, breadwinning, and, you know, and I'm not necessarily gender role specific, but you understand what I'm saying? Whenever those lines, because I know powerful men that were raised by strong women.
Yeah.
And you know, none of the stereotypes of a single mom's home was upon these men. These men were raised strong, protectors, fear God. You see what I'm saying? Because they were raised in a way that. So I'm saying I think those roles are important to advocate. Man, I remember there. You know, you hear in stories. I'm going to tell my daddy. Well, there was a whole generation of kids that wanted to go tell a daddy didn't stand up for their family, didn't go to bat, didn't stand on sidelines or, you know, sit in bleachers to advocate and affirm. So the first person that came along to advocate for us and affirm us, we said, I belong to you.
For sure. And
we our identities, our purposes, all of those things became with no direction.
Yeah.
Because we just walked into whoever's arm said, I loved you.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I like that for sure. I was reading a Bible verse, Genesis 3, and this question is kind of what it popped into my head, and I was, I guess, taken back because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something that we have been dealing with since like the first man, and it's accountability. Yeah. So, do you think most men are accountable for their actions? And I guess I want to preference it because, so in Genesis 3, you know, God is telling Adam and Eve, do not eat the tree of life. Right. And Eve is talking to the snake, and the snake is telling her, like, you know, you're not going to die. Your eyes are going to be open up to things. And what I read and I found kind of crazy was Adam was right by Eve when Eve ate of the fruit. And so it says in the Bible that he was by her, so he saw her eat the fruit, and he still had a choice to not eat the fruit, and he ate the fruit. And then when God is looking for them and he's hiding, these are some things that pop, you know, in as far as like the negative stereotypes when it comes to doubt, fear, insecurities, hiding, misinformation, and blame. And so in Genesis 3:12, when God asked, did you eat of the fruit? Adam immediately blamed Eve for it. And so in my head, I'm thinking, and I've dealt with men for the past 4 years in my accountability group, and it is harder for men, in my opinion, to say I did this and I want to fix it and make it work versus it's easier just to blame someone else for it. So yeah, that's kind of the preference of why I asked the question.
Yeah. You give a preacher a microphone. I'm telling you right now.
Well, go ahead. I'm
about to set it off.
100%. Let it go.
So much. Yeah. There's so much in that story.
For sure.
And there's so much that just American culture was taught about those stories and the interpretation of those stories. I have an incredible friend, Nigerian brother. And when we talk about our raisings in faith, how we interpret the same scripture,
for sure,
but two different ways.
For sure.
For example, the prodigal son. I'm not going to get off topic. I'm coming back.
I got you.
Prodigal son, we always hear, he finally reached the end of his rope. And he said, man, at least I could find bread in my father's house. So he ran. And it was this repentant exchange. But in other parts of the world, he had no more resources left.
Yeah.
He was literally starving. And it wasn't his anticipation to reunite with his father that brought him home. It was his desperation and hitting rock bottom that brought him home.
Yeah.
The condition of the father was the same.
Yeah.
But I say all that to say, we read the stories of Adam and Eve like through a certain lens, whether we like to believe that or not. So everything I'm about to say is what I want to do is shatter the lens and look at it from a perspective. First of all, I think the bigger question is a question of seduction. It was the first time seduction to compromise entered into the hearts of humanity. It started with Eve being seduced by a snake. It started with, just the idea. There was so much compromise. To answer the greater question, though, without getting too off topic, is I think that shame hid him in the bushes. Shame covered them with the leaves. I think jealousy motivated them both in conversation, or what I mean, we're going to assume and we're going to believe that they were as human as you and I. They were, because when he made one perfect man, he made us all perfect. He didn't dumb Adam down. I believe if Adam were here, he would have the same intellectual. You see what I mean? Because God made us all fearfully and wonderfully the same. But I think the introduction of pride was what Adam didn't want to admit. This is the moment I think God saw that his creation plan needed a savior. It wasn't the apple and it wasn't the bite. Even though that was disobedience, people been disobeying him. He'll take the disobedience. But the pride, the shame, or the decision to double down and to lie and to blame deals with matters in the heart. Matters of the outside. My temper got at me, and I went off on somebody or whatever. But someone that tries to double down, and I use the word double down as a sense like they try to justify their actions.
So when you say double down, I've done this multiple times in a lot of different occasions where I'm having an argument and I realize I'm wrong, and I know I'm wrong, but there's no way. There's no way that person is ever going to know that I was wrong. So I'm going to double down, and we're going to have this argument until
they give up.
Yeah, until they give up, or we just walk away.
Down.
I'm 100%. I got you. So that's
the point. Is. I feel like God looked upon man and said, not that he made a mistake, that he said, I'm learning more about this creation as I'm going. Almost as if now I've got to put a plan in place. So it was then, in that very moment, I think a savior was needed. Because why did he blame? Man, I think it could be just the male pride of not wanting to look weak. Not wanting to look, it's like not wanting to look wrong. And so where does that pride build up? Man, if that's one thing I think trips up everybody that we don't talk about enough, it's pride that takes us back to porn. It's pride that takes us back to alcohol. It's pride that takes us back to self. It's pride that takes us back to our career to resolve things and identity issues. Some people ain't anybody unless they're in their office. Unless they're behind their desk or with their title. But when they clock out, that's where workaholism comes from. When you clock out, you're a nobody. In your head. You go home, you just got to throw the trash. But over at the company, 81 people worship the ground you walk on. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think it's those prideful moments. And then we learn in the New Testament the things, or later on in the Bible, I should say, the things the Lord hate, like the pride, a proud look. And so I really think that's why he blamed. It was his pride.
And it's crazy because what tends to be weak is really strong, and what tends to be strong is really weak. It takes a strong man to say, yes, I'm wrong, and not to blame someone for something that they did. Mm-hmm. So I live by a philosophy of everything is my fault.
Okay.
I can always pinpoint when I could have done something different for the different outcome that is now placed in front of me, even if the person did something to me. Mm-hmm. So I don't waste my energy looking at that person, trying to find fault in that person. What I do is learn from my past behaviors so that it doesn't happen again. So that I'm not like worried about like someone else, or I'm not thinking about someone else. It's always about, how I can get better in this process, and then moving forward, not allowing it to happen again. And so that has really helped me out in my life of just really just not running from that issue of like, this is me, all me. I'm just going to take it and have that conversation with myself about it.
And you're right. Mm-hmm. But what did it take to get you there?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to, put all your business up, but what broke you? And how many times did you have to say, this would have gone a whole lot different if I would have just turned the attention on me for a minute?
For sure.
And how many times did you almost figuratively have to sweep up the pieces of something that didn't have to break?
Yeah.
Because what you said earlier is you doubled down.
Yeah.
We all have done it. And my point is, that is the philosophy. That is the right approach. Mm-hmm. I really think the majority of family issues would really heal up if everybody, instead of spending their efforts pointing, let's say corporate issues, team, if you're on a team, if you're in a whatever, if everybody would, instead of pointing the blame to all the other shortcomings, if we would turn on ourselves, not as against ourselves, but what the word says is to use it looking into a mirror. What did it take to get you to that point? That's the real cost here.
For sure.
And that is the answer again to the Adam issue. It started with our father Adam.
Yeah.
Literally, pride.
Yeah.
How many times did your pride have to break over and over? And if you didn't break it, it got broken. Mm-hmm. Still, somebody broke it.
Yeah.
And I think the philosophy's right.
Yeah.
But no one really knows how expensive that philosophy was. That degree.
Yeah.
That degree, there was no loan. There was nothing big enough. That degree of breaking your pride and being able to close your mouth in situations and say, all right, I got to work on me because I'm coming into this conversation hot, or I'm not pulling my weight on the team, or I'm struggling at whatever. Mm-hmm. Those are expensive lessons.
That question, it really kind of got me thinking about, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. And so for the last 4 years, I've been a BIP facilitator. So BIP stands for Batterers Intervention and Prevention Program. And so I taught classes 4 years for men who have been abusive, as well as women who have been abusive. Mm-hmm. And so it's easier to teach something than to live it. And I was creating all this chaos while inspiring, motivating, and transforming other people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
And so essentially, I think I put myself on a pedestal. God was on the back burner, and he's like, all right, you keep doing this, I'm gonna let you have it, and we'll see how far you get. And I ended up, I'm going through a divorce, and so that within itself just kind of just shook me to my core, because I just never assumed like I was that guy
Right.
to get a divorce. And so now getting a divorce, I sit down and I realize like what I was teaching and what I was doing were two different things. And I never want to be that guy to talk the talk but not also walk the walk.
Sure.
And so there's a pullback method of like, now I got to pull back and I have to now. Most people don't want to sit with their demons face to face and have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I've been sitting with my demons for, a couple of months now, face to face, having these conversations with them of like, oh, this is why I thought the way I thought. Oh, this is why I've done the things I've done. And I'm not blaming anything on any, like the choice was still my choice. But now there's a level of like, I can't run from any of this anymore. Right. Running gets tiring. And at some point you have, like, if you want to live your best life, the life that God wants, that God intended for you, you have to stop running. And I think about the story of Jonah. Jonah's life didn't change until he stopped running and he faced the thing that God told him to go face. But he had to go through so much. I would not want to get eaten up by a whale for 3 days. Like, that's just not something I'd want to do. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what would you eat? How would you sleep? Like, I mean, what is that process? How would that look? But essentially, like, most people, and I can't say most, I'm just going to say me. My life, I was swallowed up by a whale. God was telling me this is what you need to do. And I ran until essentially everything in my life was just broken and torn apart. And I realized, like, okay, I gotta stop running. Right. And I gotta face these issues with God, because that's, essentially that's where my strength comes from. That's how I'm going to get, through this. And so that's kind of what kind of helped me open my eyes to like seeing like, man, I can't blame anyone. I can't blame the devil for choices that I made. Right. He put it there. I didn't have to do it. Again, the fruit looked more appetizing, so I grabbed it and I ate it because, eating the vegetables didn't look too good. And so I was blaming I blamed most of my life until I realized, like, look in the mirror. I am the problem. And in order for me to fix the problem, I have to fix myself. Yeah.
I said earlier that the whole Adam and Eve situation was seduction. The words of the serpent seduced the woman.
Got you.
The woman seduced the man.
Got you.
Compromise from what you knew built a pride inside of what she knew. She heard the same words. You know what I'm saying? I said all that to say something in our lives I feel like is always seducing us to compromise.
For sure.
And wanting us to build a prideful position in the middle of that compromise.
For sure.
Seduction, compromise, and pride can almost always dig its way back. You can dig your way back and you'll always find those triplets running around together.
For sure.
Something in our most broken times seduced us to thinking something against what we knew. Depression, it don't just sneak up on you.
Yeah.
It is a seduction into believing words louder than what you're hearing, or words that you're hearing louder than what you know on the inside of you. It's causing you to compromise your core values and beliefs, and ultimately almost sit in it, like you said. Those demons that you mentioned, all of them in one way or another had seduced you. And what seduces you may not seduce me. And that's the beautiful and horrible thing about this is it all comes down to there's no rhythm other than just rooting those issues out. I say to people all the time when we're counseling and coaching with them, I'm just like, you see a tree and you see a fruit hanging on the end of a tree. And really the fruit is just a outside depiction of the root.
Yeah.
You want to know what the tree is, you see it. But if it wasn't there, it still is that.
Yeah.
Down deep inside. And just because I'm a man of ministry, and you may not see some of those same fruits that you see on this one or that one, doesn't mean I don't battle the same roots.
Gotcha.
Seduction, compromise, and pride.
Gotcha.
I think men gotta learn to battle the seduction of our world. And think about it. Marketing agencies around the world are learning how to seduce people's attention.
For sure.
Causing them to compromise what they believe. Let's take a product. I believe this is the best brand product. My job at the alternative product is to seduce you into compromising what you believe.
Yeah.
And then causing you to be loyal now to my product.
Yeah.
It's around us all the time.
Yeah.
What is the antidote? What is the antibiotic? Or not the antibiotic. I really think it's the vitamin.
Yeah.
Some people use the word and prayer as just almost a spare tire. You take it out of the trunk when you need to get out of a bind. And then some use prayer and scripture and community of faith and these type of things as the steering wheel. I use this to get where I'm going, not just to get me out of a bind when life gives me a flat. There's two different worlds there. The antidote to seduction, compromise, and pride is found in his presence.
Yeah.
It's found in an understanding of, I'm gonna stretch out here. Not church, but God.
Gotcha.
They are not the same. I went to a Mexican food restaurant and I ordered a burger. And somebody said, why did you order a burger? It's a Mexican food restaurant. I don't know what it is, but here, I like the way they do it. It's almost like I separated what the expectation was from what I needed, or what I probably didn't need, but you understand what I'm talking about. What I wanted out of the situation.
I got you.
Too many people group up church and God when they're not always the same.
Yeah.
I'm a church advocate because I think it's important. But I really think people need to find a way to God, to hearing, understanding, communicating, and having relationship with God, not just walking through the door of a church.
Yeah.
I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and we went to celebrate a birthday, and you know how Vegas is. It's a casino, a bar, a casino, a bar, a casino, a bar. I never knew if I was standing in a casino or a bar or whatever, because it's all kind of running together. None of them changed who I was and what I went there to do. You know what? I went there to enjoy, have a great time with my family. It was my little sister's birthday. You understand what I'm saying? I think people just think just because I'm in church, well, that counts. Goodness, you could go to church and still be messed up. That's not the answer. It's God. It's really a relationship and an understanding of God. And then thirdly is his word. I hear people all the time say, I don't hear God talk when I talk back to him. Don't tell me God's not talking to you if you're not reading your Bible. Yeah,
because he talked back to me a couple of times. I was like, ooh-wee, ooh-wee.
Because he's loud. And when you open up those words, it's almost like he has a megaphone. Because you can't not read that word. Excuse my lack of grammar, but you cannot read that word intently and with attention and not hear him.
Yeah.
Now, if you read in the King James and you don't speak like that, then I suggest you find an interpretation you can understand. But those things are the antidote. And if you take them like a vitamin, what I said, an antibiotic fixes the issue, 10 days, take these, finish the course, you'll be good. But a vitamin prevents the issue from rising up.
Gotcha.
And it builds up the antibodies and the necessary stuff inside of you to prevent it from even starting. Prayer, communion, And when I say communion, I'm not talking about bread and wine. I'm talking about community, communication. And then his word is the antidote to those things which I think are the core. Sure, there's other things, and this is how the enemy works. Like, it's so simple, but it becomes so complicated again because of our pride. We don't want to go to church because it's going to make me look weak to my friends that don't go. Or it's going to make me feel judged by those that do go. Everything is, I'm being seduced out of a life like that on Friday night. And it's almost like I'm being pulled into something like that on Sunday morning. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And learning to grow your footing. I'm a recent CrossFitter. 90 days in.
90 days in. Let's go.
And I ain't stopped yet. I felt like it though. One of the first lessons I learned was form. Because you can pick up any amount of weight one time, sloppy, but not 15 reps. You know what I mean? And it's almost the same thing. We can carry anything if we get our footing and our form. Those things help shape us and teach us footing and form so that we can stand through anything.
Yeah.
The Bible calls it the rock. Upon the rock, I'll build my church, a firm foundation, a chief cornerstone. Those are euphemisms and explanations of just basically saying a solid foundation.
Awesome. So you talked about porn, and I think this is something that people don't want to talk about. I know when I went to Iraq, everyone in my unit had some form of it. It was just something that we did. No one questioned it. It was just like, this is life. The average age of a young boy to start watching porn now is at 10. And I say now, but this is stats that were happening kind of in my era.
Right.
And we didn't have access to it as much as getting a phone now and opening up and it's there.
For sure.
And so, looking at stats, 64% of people who say they're Christians watch some form of porn monthly, weekly, or daily. But there's 7% of churches that have ministries that, attack this issue or talk about this issue. And I think this is an issue that is prevalent in a lot of churches, and no one really is creating a space for church folks to have this conversation. Why do you think that is?
I was 13 years old when I found it. In a pastor's home. Grew up in a pastor's home. It was on Channel 99. And it terrorized me. Because I liked it, and I felt so ashamed of it at the same time. The answer to why I think that is I think the church has worked so hard to take our attempts to represent what we understand the gospel, Christ, the Bible, with such a heavy. Even though we did it wrong, it was with a heavy heart to try to do the right as we can. I'm not going to say it was all people being religious and malicious and fake, although it comes across that way. We just refused to be. We thought it was dangerous to be real. That real meant weak, and it terrorized me at 13 because, when I was not masturbating as a young teenage boy, I was covering it up. I was hiding it. I never wanted to expose it or be exposed. But at the same time, I look now at my behaviors. 9 o'clock at night, I go lock myself in my room, lock my door. Well,
it's go time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And so we were, here's the thing. Now that I have sons, and they got cell phones in their hands, you know, and they got friends and they're, you know, high school and just everything. It's been around there. I got a 14-year-old, and we found it on his phone at 9 years old. And it wasn't even his phone. It was an iPod / you know, we just let it go on Wi-Fi, and he could play his games and listen to his music. It wasn't even a phone.
Yeah.
But that Safari tab, it snuck up on him. And here I'm thinking, probably hasn't even gone through puberty yet. You know what? At 9 years old, it's as raw as anything I saw at 13, 14. When I tell you I battled it on into my marriage. And I'm going to stand here as real McCoy as I can and say I still hear it knocking at the door sometimes. My point is, how can you be a pastor? How can you say this knowing your wife might hear this? Because I think we take its power away when we begin to talk.
Yes, sir.
I used the M word a minute ago.
Yeah.
In church, they acted like that didn't happen. Christians are horny too.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
These are things I could never say. Watch me say it though one of these days.
Right. For sure.
I'm going to say it in the early service. We need to empty out some seats. And so our bodies work the same.
100%.
So we passed on covering it, and we never talked about it. I said all that to say, if we don't become more authentic people, we're going to continue to cover up. Yeah. Authenticity. Until I met somebody who experienced the torture of porn. Yeah. Because porn is not just digital. Yeah. It is boot camp. Yeah. For behaviors. Yeah. It is training you to hide, to stretch the limits of sexuality to the point of abuse. It is degrading in many ways.
Creates insecurities.
It creates a whole lot of mental health issues. It doesn't care if you're a woman or a man. There is comparisons. There's all these. And so the church sucks at talking about it. Yeah. We just started a program, and I won't blame it, but when COVID happened, you know, my first Sunday as a lead pastor, I'd literally been in ministry since I was 20 years old. But my first Sunday become a lead pastor was the first Sunday in April of 2020 in the middle of a pandemic. So everything I planned to start programs, it's like all out the window. Oh, yeah. So we're just now launching a program at Hope Alive Church called Building Bridges. And it's led by a man who has an incredible testimony of drug addiction, recovery, completely just turning his life around. No 12-step, self-help, basically pulled himself up, crawled up out of all the all the troubles and everything. Pornography is as much of a drug. Oh, 100%. It's as much of a narcotic to our minds and our bodies. I say all that to say, our church happens to have this one program. Could we talk about it more from the pulpit? I do, as often as I authentically feel it. Because even the word makes people uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In mixed company, if we're in a room full of men, we can use the word pornography, and it's almost like
it's a normal thing. Yeah, okay.
I can understand. We all battle, whatever. But then it gets into and then we don't want them to think we're pervert. We don't want them to think all this stuff. It has to be talked about more. And I think the more and more that churches and pastors and ministers and really, I will take all the labels off. Anybody that wants to make an impact for Christ and the message of Christ has to be more authentic. Yeah. And my sons, I was able to sit down with my sons and I said, I know what you're doing at night. I know what you're doing when you're in that restroom. Yeah. I've been there. Yeah. I know how you think about it at school and can't wait to get home. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? And was that the end? Was that the all-fixing conversation, one message? No. I think it's empathy. Yeah. It's authenticity.
It's shining that light to let them know, hey, don't the more you hide it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
And so, I called my little nephew and I told him, we sat him down and we have that. I would rather teach them, my nephews, about it than have someone at the school, because someone at school is gonna show them, or hey, this is what you do. And so I'd rather have them learn about it and do it from a person who has dealt with it and kind of know, like, hey, this is the route you go. Like, I love you. Don't put yourself in trouble. I'm here for you. Versus just there's a blind eye of like, I don't want to talk about it.
And it goes back to our original conversation. Yeah. The shame.
Yeah.
The darkness. Abusers love darkness.
For sure.
Because it can keep things under wrap.
For sure.
The more and more you expose these issues, this answers the question of suicide in men. The more and more you have conversations like you and this podcast and other resources out there are going to help men, it's going to shine the light on the hurting areas. One time I was a kid, I was riding my bike, cut my leg wide open. Cut my leg wide open. First thing I do running into the house is, Mom, I need a Band-Aid. As she pours, I forgot, like peroxide, boils that thing out. I'm stinging, screaming. It probably was not as bad as I'm making it out to be. But you get my point. It was. At 9 years old, I felt like I was about to lose this leg. This is my kicking leg.
I got you.
And I thought the whole time, surely she's going to cover it up. That's not what she did. Mm-mm. She said, let it breathe. And if you will expose it to air, to light, it will heal faster than you allowing it to cover in darkness and fester and continue to just, stay stuck. That lesson right there, any issue. You have issues in your marriage, you better let them breathe. Don't hide them. Get help. When I marry couples now, I say 3 things. Your spouse is gonna change in 10 years. You better keep God at the forefront, because you think you have attraction and infatuation, but you don't have love without God, who is love.
Gotcha.
And the third thing is, you better know who to go to in time of trouble, because the sun will get cloudy at times. Yeah. You have issues in your business, get help early. Yeah. Don't be so prideful sitting in there that you think, and then before you know, IRS or foreclosure or the bank is coming to take from you. If you're battling pornography, if you're battling addiction, society will laugh at you, because that's the nature of that whole thing. But if you want to survive, you better get help. Yeah.
And everyone acts like, when someone says they're addicted, they look at that person like, you're, in a bad place. But we all have an addiction to something in life. And so,
who in the world
who doesn't
can stand on one side of the table and say, you?
Yeah. Facts.
And even Jesus said, here's the stone.
Yeah.
What side of the stone did he stand on? Let's just look at that picture for 60 seconds.
For sure.
It was a stone in the middle. It was one group, and it was Jesus and a lady who was guilty of everything. Yeah. And
caught in the act of it.
Caught in the act.
Yeah.
They went live on her rear end right there and showed the world. Viral,
yeah.
And he still stood on the same side of the rock as her and said, since y'all got it all together, throw it.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't turn to her and say, you're fine, honey. Go back and do what you do.
For sure.
You can be who you want to be.
Yeah.
No, he said, this is going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Don't do this. But he stood and he advocated. Remember the word I said earlier? He advocated for her. Yeah. And he said, she's guilty, but you're not going to stone her.
Yeah.
Lawfully, they could. It was in the Constitution of that time. They could do everything. They were there justly. But he stopped and said, I feel like that was a powerful moment, because that showed the nature of a king that I could relate to. That when I was doing everything that I was guilty of, he still stood with me.
Yeah.
That's what makes the difference.
Yeah.
Bringing those things to light and letting them breathe. And so if I could just give a message to anybody listening, get help.
Yeah.
let it breathe.
Yeah.
Like open it up and expose it until it heals.
Yeah.
Because covering it and letting it infect and fester, man, it's gonna make the situation 10 times worse.
10 times worse. So you said 13. I was exposed to it at 10. 10 years old, and masturbation also at 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you're hiding and you're hiding and you're hiding, and you know in church it's don't do it or go to hell. You know what I mean? Like that was our like, my learning process. And my dad
you still
wasn't
say
around.
the words masturbation around church folks and they get all, oh Lord, just like uptight.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
We see animals in the zoo doing it.
Yeah.
You're just gonna act like you're not human.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy. It is like
that's a whole nother conversation. But
the words that you say, people just kind of get turned off by, and it's just like, these are the words that need to be said. So don't run from
no
them.
wonder people can't speak the language of the church, because the words they use and the words the church use are just different. Mm-hmm. And I understand we're supposed to be peculiar, but at the same time, like, I want to build a bridge for those that are looking for some hope to come across. Yeah. And if I show you a picture that's not real,
Yeah. And I can honestly say it, from 10 to 35, I'm 35 years old. 25 years, it has had a stronghold on my life. I was never aware of all the negative things that it was doing in my life until I had to sit down and become aware of, like, hey man, again, this is a demon that you just have not dealt with because you've been running from it this whole entire life. Everyone does it, so it's a normal thing. It's not normal for you. You're not a normal person. This is not what you can do in order to, like, live your best life and to really make that impact. So you're going to have to sit down, become more aware of it, and figure out, where it's coming from and what you can do to, stop this process, stop this cycle, because it's been a cycle for 25 years. And I never questioned anything about sex. If I had an urge, I would just do it. Like, there was no processing it. It had overtaken everything about me. And so now, in this process of sitting back, and opening these wounds and allowing God to give me the strength to move forward. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at now in this process of, like, I don't want to continue this issue. And because now I'm aware of this issue, I have to, then again, get the help and stop this issue from happening, because I don't want my nephews going through the same exact thing I've gone through. Yeah. And he's already, they've already started. And so, now it's my job to, do what I can to make sure, like, hey, this is not the life you want to live, because you can't live your best life, with all this stuff that you're dealing with, and especially if you're trying to hide it and make it seem like this is something. You
just said something that I think I just want to say. I finally tapped into my purpose as a man when I became the person I didn't have.
Got you. Ooh, that's good.
You just said you are to your nephews.
Yeah.
You relate to their struggles. You lived their struggles and had no one to, I don't want to assume, but maybe had no one to coach you through.
For sure, yeah.
Those conversations. Yeah. Same for me. Having lived in a pastor's home, and I don't fault my dad. I don't blame him. I just say, those attention to those. I want to be that for my sons. And when I became that as a mentor for men, especially young men, I became most fulfilled as a man because I was finally, from my deficits, I was finally able to make deposits. I lived the life of, I don't have. I can't find anybody. Does anybody want to coach me? Yeah. Does anybody want to help me? I'm mutilating my insides and my creativity, and I don't know what I'm doing. And then I see young men or men in general in the same boat, and I can run and say, hey, I know what you did when you locked that door.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that I love you, and there's no reason for you to feel shame. That's natural. You're going through something. Let me tell you what the causes are. Let me educate you and teach you. Not to just approve it.
Yeah.
But to teach you what you're.
You're not going to stop it. No. You can try all you want to. Like once you get a taste, you're not going to stop it until
you get to the point you understand the power of it, like the epiphany you just had.
Yeah.
The power of what is really taking place here.
Yeah.
And until then, I'm gonna walk with you.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been there. I'm gonna cover you. I'm gonna stand there. Hold your head up. Hold your head up. You're not less than.
Yeah.
You're normal.
Yeah.
You're powerful. Yeah. You still have purpose. Because, man, in the dark, you don't know who you are.
Yeah. And it's lonely. Especially when people are trying to point fingers and tell you, oh my gosh, you're doing this, this, and this. But we all at some point have been in the dark, or we're all still struggling, in the dark. And it's easy for people who are in their dark place to look outside and be like, oh, he's in a dark place. And I guess place blame, but not look on the inside and realize, like, okay, I'm in a dark spot too. I need to figure this out for myself as well.
And Paul said in the New Testament, it was that thorn that we all have, those dark places, that pull us to our knees in prayer.
Yeah.
If it was not there, if we didn't have a dark place, every person listening, me, you, every person in every church, in every, from the White House to my house, every person's got one. If you didn't have it, you would not pray.
Yeah.
You would not seek help. Those, I preached a message one time literally called Embrace the Thorn.
Yeah.
Because it really is something you're going to have to learn.
Yeah. That
if the thorn was not in your flesh, you might get to a place where you think you don't even need God.
Yeah.
That was the seduction that the snake told Eve.
For sure.
Here's why he don't want you to eat.
Yeah.
Because he don't want you, he thinks that you're going to know more than him. The tree was good and evil, knowledge. He don't want you, he wants to hold you back from all this vast world of knowledge. It was that moment. We're all still walking in Adam's pride.
400%.
We're all, that joker.
Yeah.
We're having coffee. Him, David.
Yeah, David.
I'm walking through. I'm walking through
David.
stuff.
David's my homie, man. Cause I'm like David. David went through so much stuff, and he was still a man after God's own heart, and God still loved him and showed him mercy and grace.
But he was wild. Wild.
Yeah, him and me are the same. Yeah, we got a lot of things in common.
I'm sitting on David's room.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
You got room for me over there?
For sure.
I know what to say.
And the crazy part is, when they knew he was dead, whenever they laid a woman next to him, and he did not. Yep. He didn't get happy, and so you just assume, like, okay,
and the Bible gave him
gone.
The label you just said.
100%.
A man after God's own.
Broken,
broken, flawed.
Yeah.
He had a woman's husband who he wanted her murdered so he could have her.
Yeah.
And still found a place in God's heart.
Yeah.
That's why hope is alive.
For sure.
Because hope is not lost for anyone.
Yeah.
If they'll turn to that light, you could have turned to him 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I'm telling you on this microphone today, I cannot count the thousands of times I've said, if you'll just get me out of this one more time.
One more time.
if you'll forgive me, I promise I've lied to God so much.
Oh my goodness, so many times.
Stories. I told him some stories. You'll get me out of this.
And he knows.
I feel like he's sitting there like,
come on, man.
Just get to the point.
I mean, I'm gonna help you, but I know you're gonna do it again.
Don't say it. Don't say it. And there I am. And you know what? That's what makes me want to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fact that I was not going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It was that I couldn't imagine another person being so good to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what leads people to repentance.
Yeah.
Is not God's wrath.
Yeah.
I said this yesterday. Most people look at God with his hand in the air, ready to strike them. But I want to tell you that more times than not, his hand is stretched out,
Yeah.
ready to provide,
Yeah.
to help, to extend a hand up to you.
Yeah.
That's what makes me serve him. It ain't the churches. They ain't big enough, pretty enough, the music, and none of that.
Yeah.
It's that one factor that keeps me coming.
Yeah. Last thing, and then I have the last question. But it's funny because when I was in Iraq, and I was, I think, 20 at the time. I had just turned 20. There was a lot of, we were outside the gate. People were getting shot and blown up, and so I was 100% afraid that I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to my mom before, and she was just like, pray and ask God, like He hears you. So I'm on a rooftop, and I'm like, God, if you let me come back home, I'll serve you. I promise. Just give me my hands and my knees, and like when people were getting hands cut off and knees blown up and stuff, like I just want to come back like whole physically, and I promise I'll serve you. And I think the route that I have gone in my life is because of that rooftop and me saying I promise I'm going to do this. And then once my feet hit American soil, I took off the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing any and everything that I said I wasn't going to do. Because essentially what I want to do is His will, and to do everything that He wants me to do,
Sure.
to maximize the life that He has given me.
Right.
And so now I'm understanding that and realizing like, oh, okay, like, at the end of the day, you also have to be a man of your word. If you're telling God, this is what I'm going to do for you, if you get me out of this, He's going to hold you to that.
Sure.
Especially if it's in His will and that's what He wants you to do anyway, He's going to hold you to it. And so there's going to be pressure. Like if you're going to feel pressure because I guess you're going to feel pressure either way, but there's a negative pressure you can feel and there's a positive pressure you can feel.
Yeah.
The negative pressure is what you need to be doing. You're in this job, you're in this relationship, you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. That negative pressure of like, stop doing it and do something else. Mm-hmm. And then there's a pressure of what I feel now. This pressure of like, I don't know what could happen tomorrow.
Right.
I resigned from my job 3 weeks ago. So there's things that, I was, as far as money wise that I was getting that I'm not getting anymore. And so like, I don't know what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, this pressure that I feel, I'm doing something that needs to be done.
Right.
And so I will be taken care of regardless, because like you said yesterday, the birds are taken care of. Yeah. They do not wake up in the morning and worry about nothing. They fly around, they eat, they make their nest, they make babies, and they go about their life. I mean, it's just, that's what it needs to be.
For sure.
And so now I'm there's a shift that's happening within me of like, like, I want that good pressure of, I don't know what's going to happen, but God, you take the wheel and I am going to follow now versus trying to lead, because I know leading has done nothing but create, just chaos and anarchy all over the place. So,
I mean, and I think you're on the right track. Here's the thing, the only thing I'm going to add is this is the goodness of God.
For sure.
He knew today, He knew the end of Aaron Thomas's life before Aaron was ever on the rooftop praying the prayer he prayed. For sure. He knew what the last 10 years would go through. Yeah. He knows the things you and I couldn't even dream up to comprehend. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that I would have went through what I went through. Yeah. A night in jail. Yeah. In front of a judge. Yeah. All the stuff. Losing so many things. Being in ministry and being kicked out for being human. All different types of things. I'd have laughed at you. I'd have said, there's no way. Yeah. The only one that knew the whole time was God. Yeah. And I think He still did what He did for you, knowing how you would respond to your own words. For sure. You would respond. There's so much ahead. Yeah. And I think you're on the right track there, and I'm not trying to turn this into a personal ministry session, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Because I really feel like when you prayed that prayer, He still knew who you were.
For sure. Yeah.
And,
He knew.
He was sitting there.
Yeah, come on, man. I know. Once your feet touch the ground, you're gonna be wilding out. And I did what David did. Once my feet touched the ground, I went and I wilded out for sure.
And he still put it all together.
Yeah.
And the best is still ahead.
Oh, for sure. Man, so much nuggets and.
Did we even get
great.
to it all?
No, we did not. Not even be close.
This had to be a part 2.
Yeah, it's gonna be a part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10. It'll be a lot of parts. But I appreciate you coming on and just pouring your heart and being real. I just think that it's not something that a lot of people want to do, and it's something that needs to be happening because. That's also not in English, but we'll just go with it.
For our sons and daughters to buy into faith, we got to get real.
For sure.
Or else everything else is going to appeal to them.
Yeah.
And that's why I told my kids, I made a joke about my son yesterday. He went thrifting, found a shirt that said Tennessee Whiskey that just matched these pants he wanted, and didn't even think about it was on the shirt.
Yeah.
Man, he thought I was going to get so mad.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just a shirt.
Yeah. Or it's a song, too. You know what I mean?
It's a shirt. It's a song.
song.
And here's the thing, I didn't worship your shirt.
Yeah.
He's 14, so you know how he just thinks. We got to be real.
Yeah.
And I'm all for boundaries and obviously understanding, but man, the world's going to give them everything they ain't supposed to have anyway.
Yeah.
We might as well teach them, instruct them, accompany them in moments like that. So
yes, sir.
This was fun, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you for jumping on.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And for daily motivational and up-to-date content, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Excellence Above Talent. And remember, keep moving forward, never give up, and you are never alone in this battle. We'll see you next time.